Hey everybody, I'm David with Bolivar Live, and I'm here with Chandra with Aaron and Franklin Engineering. And last week we did a show on talking about the TWIA. In fact, the last 2 weeks we've done shows on TWIA. We did a show about a meeting. Then they had the meeting, and the next show was about the results of it, about the price increase they're wanting to push through. And Chandra, you're against it. But it's not just a majority vote, it's a 2/3 vote, if I'm not mistaken. And so there were, from what I understand, most of the people tied to the coastal area voted against it. And then it was the non-coastal people that really voted for it. But I want to bring something up, and you and I have talked about this before the show. There was a comment on our recording that says, hey, I've already had a price increase on my insurance this year because my house value went up. So I had to buy more insurance so that I was covered enough. So I've already gone up 10%. Then you and I were talking, and there's an adjustment for I guess added cost, or the elevation of cost, that's about 13% this year. So, and the rate has been filed with the insurance people. Let's talk about the adjustment of the 13% versus another 10%, because that's like 25%
right
increase.
It's a lot. So TWIA, is statutorily obligated to file their rate filing with the commissioner by August 15th, and so they did do that. This week. So they did file the recommendation that the board presented for a 10% rate increase for TWIA. But on the heels of that, the coastal delegation, who are our coastal legislators and state senators that have a coastal interest, they all co-signed a letter to the commissioner requesting that they reject that 10% increase, which the commissioner does have authority to do. And even if the commissioner does approve it, then the governor has, a way to set it aside. But the coastal delegation is trying to put pressure on TDI to not accept this 10% rate increase. In their letter, they reference the ABC, which is the adjusted building cost, and that that adjusted building cost on average is 13%, which your listener commented they'd experienced 10%, which is
right.
In that range. So, but the average is 13% across residential construction. So that's residential homes. So that's a lot. I mean, that's already a lot of increase. And the problem is you do have a way to opt out of that ABC, that adjusted building cost. But the problem is if you do, and we have a storm, you're not going to be covered up to the max that it would take to actually rebuild your home. You'd be covered to maybe what the value is right now, but not what it actually costs to rebuild.
Right.
So, because we know that after a storm, you have supply shortages, you have material costs go up, labor costs go up, and that takes into account those adjustments to the building cost. Whereas right now, the value, if you were just to build a house, would maybe be a little different. But then you add on top of that, this 10%, you're right, we're sitting right at about almost 25%. So it's a real big hit to the coast. We're already trying to do the right thing and be proactive and keep our properties insured and able to rebuild them if we need to. So we don't have to rely on outside sources or be personally burdened by that. But then you tack on this penalty basically for us living here, working here, and supplying so much GDP to the rest of the state. I mean, it's like he's a sucker punch, it's 1-2. So you're definitely going to feel it. Let me just put it that way. Everybody's really going to feel what their rate changes are next year between the ABC and if this 10% goes through.
Well, and not just the Coastal Coalition can protest this. You as an individual can send letters to the insurance.
Absolutely. They have a public comment line that you can send public comment to, and it does go to the commissioner. So you can do public comment to the commissioner,
Where
and
can we
show.
find that link?
I'll find it and I'll
Okay.
send it to you. Yeah,
And I'll
I don't
put
have
it in the
it.
show,
Yeah.
down in the comments or in the write-up. But that's the biggest thing is we really need to get a lot of people probably involved in protesting
Well,
this and
I
sending
mean,
it.
the thing is, Dave, we had over 1,500 responses, and I believe like two of them were in favor of, and all the rest were against. So if we could get those 1,500 people that responded to TWIA and said, hey,
Right.
we're against this, and have them send that same, to the commissioner of insurance and say, hey, we're really against this. I think that would definitely be, noticeable and in
Yeah.
our favor. Yeah.
Great. Now, once it goes to the commissioner, if the commissioner does approve it, it still has to go to the governor, and
Right.
then we have another op to be able to protest it then.
Yes. Hopefully, I mean, this did happen several years back where TWIA voted in a rate increase and the governor approved it, or I'm sorry, the commissioner approved it, but the governor set it aside.
Right.
So Abbott set it aside. So we have had that happen before, so it's not outside the realm of possibility. I don't know what the climate is right now and what they're thinking or feeling about the need for that. If they feel like we're getting close to maybe some real reform in the TWIA funding structure, that they feel like maybe they could set that aside and really handle that legislatively, which is what I'm hoping will happen, because we have some really good champions this year, I think, for the uh, moving forward of some real restructuring of the legislation. They started it last session. They just didn't have enough time to get it quite over the finish line, and they didn't have any special sessions that addressed it. So now this time around, I think we have some really good champions that are going to maybe really push that and try to get some support to get that structure changed, because really all the disasters that we have in the state really kind of need to be under one umbrella. I mean, the reason we have TWIA is because these insurance companies didn't want to write policies and they wanted somebody else to take the burden on. And that's why we're here. If we could get the private market to take this burden back over, it's like, if you want to write policies in Texas, if you want to write auto, if you want to write life, if you want to write medical, whatever you want to write, you need to take some of this burden on.
Right.
So, and that's the problem, is that nobody wants to take it on, and those guys have bigger lobbyers than we do.
Right.
So I wish I was a committee of one, we wouldn't have had this problem. But the problem is when you have the full board and they're looking at what our obligation is, to make sure that TWIA is solvent, which of course I want to make sure TWIA is solvent, but the reality is when you go back and look at storms and how much storms cost and what our PML is and what our funding structure looks like, it's like, why would we? I mean, our PML is ridiculous. It's 6.5 billion, and that's what the board, and I didn't vote in favor of that either. I was wanting to get a lesser number so that we wouldn't have so much reinsurance, but they had this 6.5 billion PML, which I thought was way too high, and because it was so high, that jacked up our reinsurance price. It increased. That's why one of the main reasons they want more budget is because they got to pay for all this reinsurance. And so now we've had Beryl, it's exhausted our or it's going to exhaust our catastrophe reserve fund, so we have no bank account anymore. Our bank account's going to be empty, and so that number that we need next year, that delta to buy reinsurance, is going to be higher. So, and they know that because we've had one storm.
Yeah, let's talk about Beryl real quick. You and I, it's sort of, for the most part, it's gone. We're looking at the Gulf and the coast and the Caribbean, and we've got one now that's going to go back up, maybe across Bermuda and off.
Oh, I was breathing a sigh of relief for that one. I was like, I just don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with another storm.
But you brought something up earlier about roofs, about more or less filament. As far as if you're getting a roof, if you have to have a new roof because of this, now's the time to really check in and look at the fortified. Mississippi, if I'm not mistaken, Mississippi, Florida, and some on the East Coast have already been using this quite a bit.
Yeah, Alabama is probably the biggest
Is it?
proponent. They actually have legislative discounts that are in place for the fortified roof and the fortified gold. So, I mean, they get, significant coastal discounts on fortified construction. So that is awesome. But yeah, that I think one of the things that people didn't realize on Beryl is maybe they do have some damage that they don't realize, because a lot of what we've seen so far on the damage models is that the shingles, while they may look okay just visually looking at them, they have the whole thing lifted, and so it pulled through the nails. And so when it pulls through the nails like that, it'll settle back down, but it's not attached in any way. I mean, it's attached to each other, but it's not attached to the roof deck. So
yeah, because of the tar, it's just one big sheet.
Yeah, it's one big sheet at that point.
With the heat we've been having down.
Yeah, they seal to each other, but they aren't attached to the roof deck. So
Right.
so it's just been a real. I would say just be really conscious of if you could pick up a shingle and pull like the whole section up just by pulling
Right.
on a shingle, you've got some
You have a
problems.
problem.
So don't think that maybe your roof's okay when you may really have a problem, and it could cause a lot of problems later on down the line if you do have a big storm. So
Well, and then we come into the fortified. You can have a fortified home, or you can have a fortified roof. And for those that don't know, I'm not a specialist on it, but I listen. The drip edge is gone from 2 to 3 inches. The roof decking, there's a closer nail pattern. And so if you're re-roofing your house, you're going to replace the tar paper, you're going to replace the drip edge. And so what better time to go ahead and have it fortified, because you do get a discount on it. And more or less,
it gives you an opportunity to get into the private insurance.
It's like putting shrink wrap over your roof because it's sealed.
Yeah. So, that's the thing. First of all, if you can do that, you might be able to get out of the insurance pool. So you may be able to get private insurance at that point. So that's the first plus. But as far as physically what happens, the reason that they find that there is less risk for insurers and why they're happier to do that is because their biggest claims and biggest losses are for water penetration inside the house. It's not the roof itself coming off that's the problem. It's the fact that it leaks water inside, and then all the sheetrock comes down and all the furniture gets ruined, and then you can't live there. So that loss of contents, that interior damages, and that loss of use is what they're really paying for, less the roof covering. So, the goal is to keep you warm and cozy inside your house, even if you have to replace your roof. So sealing the roof deck, keeping the roof deck on, re-nailing it with ring shaped nails in a tighter pattern, sealing all your seams, whether that's with a mod bit tape on your seams or a fully adhered roof deck underlayment, that wider drip edge to really hold the edges down really well, which also has a specific nail pattern, and then just your normal shingles, high wind, just like we're already doing. So a few little careful things, and really about it is the documentation, and that's something we can partner with, the roofer that's going to be putting it on. Either they can do some of it, but we have somebody that's in Bolivar every single day.
Right.
So as long as we know, we can come by and look at it, and get them on the right track and then move on. So it's a really easy way to give yourself peace of mind, because say that you decide, I don't really want to go fortified. If you just do those things just on your own, just as an enhancement to what you're already doing, it's going to give you peace of mind and save you money and time and frustration in the long run. Because while your shingles may be in the Gulf of Mexico, you are still have a sealed roof deck, and you're still okay until you can get a new roof put on. So.
Right. We're going to be talking about the TWIA and all that probably for the next couple weeks. And as we get more information, we're going to let you know more and more. And I want to thank Chandra for taking these mornings for us to record this and let us know exactly what's going on in the TWIA insurance. I know Mays Middleton's really
Yeah,
on
he's very vocal.
on the side of no price increase. And the Coastal Coalition, I'm sure they're going to do everything they can with it, but it's the public, it's you that owns the homes down here that also needs to send in your suggestions or your disagreement on the price increase, because like that gentleman said, David, I think it was Gaston from here on Bolivar, he said, David, I've already had a price increase because my home value went up, so I'm already paying 10% more. If they put this into effect, now I'm going up 20% and I can't afford that. And so this is something we really need to watch, and don't let it just fly through. Let's show that, hey, we can only do so much down here. And as far as the fortification, Aaron and Franklin really goes out of their way to educate you, and there's also classes builders and roofers can take on the fortification, and you can read up more on it on the Aaron and Franklin website and get more information, because even if you don't do it and do the documentation like you said, if you do your roof back to that, it's going to be a stronger roof and save you trouble in the long run. But while you're spending the money and doing it, you might as well get it certified, because are insurance companies giving discounts yet on that?
They are. There's not a lot of them that write in Texas because it's not required. So that's how the difference between Texas and Alabama. Alabama has a legislatively required discount that insurance companies have to follow, and everybody has to follow those. In Texas, there's a handful, maybe 5 or 6 insurance companies, the major carriers, that are writing fortified because it's part of their overall, underwriting. But sometimes you have to find the right agent. Not all the agents, not all the State Farm agents know about it, not all the USA agents know about it. And good news is we have relationships with some of those agents, and we can put you in touch with people that actually know how to write the policies. I
know Dan, he does an insurance show with us, and he's really checked into it to get to the bottom, because he can see the writing on the wall and what's coming down the road. As these coastal areas in these states start putting stuff into effect, one
of the things that TWIA, we put out 7 legislative recommendations, and one of them was to adopt some kind of grant program to enhance roofs to fortified. And so that's something that we're already, as TWIA, recommending to the commissioner. It's like, hey, let's give some help to get people's roofs. When we're paying claims anyway, let's add a grant on top of it to give them that extra, like we were talking about, that little bit of extra money needed to go from what they would have paid already to get them to a fortified roof, because it's just less risk all the way around.
Well, and it saves the insurance companies money probably in the long run, and some peace of mind for the homeowner.
Exactly.
So, okay. Great. Well, we'll be back next week with another show with Chandra on TWIA and Texas engineering for the coastal home, I guess you could say. Chandra, thanks for joining us. We're going to head on out. Until next time, I'm David with Bolivar Live. Y'all have a great day, great week. Come see us. God bless, and bye-bye.